What are the best shoes to work out in?
When it comes to working out, there are a ton of options for workout shoes. Some are more specific to certain training goals, while others are marketed as much more all-purpose shoes. We're going to start with the generic athleisure / kind of running shoes. These are normally marketed for being cute. Granted, mine are very worn out, but we often see people pretty new to the gym using this style of shoes for training. They're marketed as all-purpose training shoes or as running shoes. Now, for a gym beginner, they're probably okay, but if you get more into running or more into lifting, you're probably going to want something that's more specific and supportive for those goals. While these are normally chosen because they're going to match an outfit and they're going to look cute, they're going to be okay in the gym if we're using mostly machines and dumbbells and not really doing any high weight exercises. As we start getting into, say, heavier deadlifts, heavier squats, the squishiness of the soles of these are going to be a lot like running shoes, where you can see, like, I can push the soles, I can move the sole around with just my hands with very little effort. Now think of having your person who's going to weigh somewhere between 100, 150, 200, 250 pounds, plus the weight of the exercise that they're lifting. Well, these shoes are made to support a human. They're not made to support a human and large amounts of weight. As we get deeper into running, we tend to, unless we're going on the barefoot train, we tend to want something a lot more supportive, where you can see I can pretty much twist my shoe in half. That's not going to be super supportive to support those running goals. Then we're going to move into our running specific shoes. So these are going to have a lot more sole on them. They're going to be supportive for running, that they bend at the toe where our foot naturally moves, but they don't bend at the arch. So they're going to be much more supportive, and they're going to help facilitate that toe off while we're running. However, when it comes to the gym, they're not the best option. So these ones have a pretty stiff sole. I prefer stiffer running shoes compared to the really rocker shaped ones that you sometimes see. Say your Hokas are going to be, or some of the other styles of your running brands are going to be a lot softer, a lot squishier, and they're going to have almost a rocker shape to them, which isn't going to provide a ton of stability under the foot when we're trying to lift. So even on this shoe, you can see, like, my toes, if we drew a straight line out, wouldn't be in contact with the ground on a squat or a deadlift. And it gets even worse when the heel is off the ground, because a lot of times most people are going to have a lot of heel pressure, or at least that even pressure through the foot. Additionally, the sole is made to absorb forces and also still tends to be pretty squishy. So again, made to support a human, not a human, plus a bunch of weight, that they're going to feel a little unstable and kind of rock around if you have a large amount of weight loaded on your back. The next most common shoe that we see in the gym is the casual attire shoe. These are the Converse and the Van style shoes, and they're not actually a bad option. See, they have a hard sole, right? I can't really squish the sole, and there's not a ton of squishy in the bottom that's going to make you feel unstable as you're squatting or you're deadlifting. Now, they're not going to be great for running because there's really no squishy underneath to support the strike of the foot. But when it comes to lifting, they're pretty flat. They're not perfectly flat, but they're flat enough that when you put pressure, they're pretty much going to go flat to the ground, and you're going to be stable through that heel. The problem we sometimes see, and it's more so with like the Converse style, is how tight the toe box is. So it's hard for that foot to splay out and actually have full contact with the ground. Now, someone who is using a lot of machines and some dumbbells and using a moderate amount of weight on a squat or deadlift probably isn't going to have too much trouble unless they feel like their foot is getting squished. In which case, we may move to a barefoot style shoe or a wide toe box shoe. So as these, you can see it's a little bit more foot shaped versus the pointed toe on these, or what we're all very familiar with, a Converse shoe. So very similar, nice flat bottom shoe. If we put pressure through the toe, the shoe goes pretty much flat, and there's not a lot of ability for that sole to rock around when it's loaded. Now, as casual shoes, they do tend to wear out a little bit faster than something that is specific for lifting. So that's where we might move to a more athletic style wide toe box shoe. So these are what I use to deadlift. They're actually like a barefoot trail shoe, but they have enough grip on the bottom that I can stick to the wood platforms really well. I have noticed as I get heavier on, say, at deadlift, these will slide on the wood floors, which I'm not a huge fan of. So I prefer to have a little bit grippier sole, but the same concept. My toes have plenty of room to space out. There's a little rock forward, but when I put my weight through my foot, my toes end up on the ground, and there's not enough sole on this specific pair to be a problem for feeling like I'm unstable. Now we get into a weight training specific shoe. So these are a pretty low heeled lifting shoe. I used to use them for both squat, deadlift, and Olympic lifting. I no longer use these to deadlift. I prefer to not have any heel on my shoes when I deadlift now, but for a squat where someone may have a limited range of motion in that ankle or want to shift the proportion of glute to quad movement toward their quads, having an elevated heel is going to help perpetuate that movement. So these are specific for weightlifting. They are very uncomfortable to run in. There's very little movement even in the toe to keep that foot planted on the ground. And you can see, even though there's a heel, it's not a squishy heel. Like, I can't press it in with my hands. So this is designed to hold a human plus a significant amount of weight. These also have kind of a rubbery, grippy sole, gum bottom sole almost, that sticks really well to the platforms, to the wood platforms, as well as this style of shoe, although they are pretty expensive, do tend to last for a very long time. I've had these probably 5 or 6 years now, and the only thing I've had problems with is the laces have worn out, and I've had to change them a couple times, but the overall shoe is still providing a good deal of support. And then lastly is going to be a cross-training shoe. These are going to be your NoBulls or your Metcons. I have a pair of indoor soccer cleats that kind of provide the same function. They tend to be relatively flat-bottomed. They don't tend to have a huge heel-toe drop. They are a hard sole. They do tend to bend at the toe, so if we do want to run some sort of sprints or do turf work with them, we can. They tend to be pretty hard on the heel, so if you are weightlifting with them, they don't squish around. So if you're running distance or you're a heel striker when you run, they're probably not going to be particularly comfortable, but they may actually make you run a little bit more on your toes. These aren't a great example because they are very narrow on the bottom, where typically the more cross-training shoes are going to be a little bit wider, like a lifting shoe, to support the foot in those heavier movements. Let me know below what your favorite training shoes are. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye!